Liminal space, a design term first mentioned in a Reddit post in 2019, grew rapidly in the era of the pandemic and has generated many secondary creations. But what is the definition of a liminal space? Why does it give a sense of unease? How has it been used in various artistic mediums? And more importantly, how can its principle be used for environmental designs? These will be the main direction of exploration in this video essay. Let's enter this world of the disorienting. Liminal spaces literally refer to spaces with transitional qualities such as corridors, paths, junctions, etc. In liminal space works, these transitional spaces are transformed from pathways to destinations, an abnormal visual choice that can cause cognitive dissonance. In the classic horror game series Silent Hill, there are numerous applications of liminality of spaces. For examples, dark corridors and fog-filled outdoor spaces, where the player is merged in such spaces for long periods of time. The horror of the scene remains even when the player is not confronted with a monster. Silent Hill PT, on the other hand, uses this technique to the extreme in space design, consisting of only corridors, which contributes to its widely acclaimed sense of horror. In the game Five Nights at Freddy's, the player has to keep an eye on the monitors to keep track of the monster's movements. Most of the time, the space the player is confronted with fits our definition of liminal space, corridors, deserted and lurking with eerie hostility. This design uses the unsettling sense of unease that only liminal space can bring, observing familiar spaces from an abnormal perspective the camera and using the disturbing desolation yet familiar scenery to engage the player's nerves. In another game, Subanohi, the game designers used a simple yet effective way of alienating the familiar, which is to gradually disintegrate. The player will experience certain scenes repeatedly, with the purpose of creating familiarity, but in each cycle the scenes will become more abnormal. This design will gradually lead the player into a trap of horror through the three features of liminality, desolation, and alienating familiarity. I have conducted an experimental exercise. I will then walk you through the process. As you can see, this is a photograph of a liminal space, and although it has not been post-processed, it is already disturbingly liminal. This shows, in practice, it may be helpful to refer to realistic images in the early stages of designing a liminal space. I constructed a 3D model of this photograph to enable my further enhancement. Now that the liminality and desolation of the space is present, as mentioned above, we need to add a threatening design to this space, for example, by adding some of the usual spooky elements, balloons, slow-moving objects, or unusual shaking. These objects or effects can be used in most spaces. As you can see, the mood of unease from the liminal space has been slowly growing. Alternatively, we can add something that indirectly represents a fear, such as water, or dim red light, to a normal liminal scene. Element that exploits subconscious fears such as the fear of water and alarms. The red light and the movement of the water would arouse the feeling of an approaching danger. It is also very effective to use the audience's attention. Take this scene, for example, an amusement park at midnight. This technique involves bringing the viewer into a scene at a wrong time. The purpose of this swing is to attract the viewer's attention and alertness, and using other spooky behavior to stimulate the viewer's mood. In addition, similarly, spaces with a high degree of uniformity, such as schools and shops, are also well suited as references for the creation of liminal spaces. This is because these spaces tend to evoke subconscious memories, making it easier for the viewer to be unconsciously submerged into the scene. Currently, the scope is wide for expanding the visual possibilities of liminal space, and similar substyles such as dreamcore and rearcore have similar characteristics and application methods. The application of this visual style to environmental design could further develop this framework for psychological horror design. Liminal space has a broad future to be used in film, television, and games. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
And I will wait for you in that world.